Hi guys, in this video I'm gonna show you which free plugins I actually use on a daily basis. Because let's face it, not all free plugins are created equally. I'm gonna divide it into basically two groups of plugins. The first are the more surgical with a lot of buttons and designed to do one thing specifically. The second group is more like color boxes. Now in the hardware domain, we're used to boxes that basically impart a certain sound just by passing signal through them. In the plugin world, in my experience, it's been hard in the past to find plugins that emulate that process. But now I think I actually found what not only are good plugins for the price, but actually that I prefer to the paid plugin versions. So let's jump into Logic and see what plugins I'm talking about. So you guys, instead of wasting time, I'm just gonna tell you which plugins we're gonna concentrate on today. As I mentioned in the intro, it's about color for me. So what I've lined up, I've got this guy, Analog Obsession, Buster SE. It's an SSL compressor. This is a Pultec emulation. I love it. It's not that CPU hungry, and that's basically all I need for a decent sounding Pultec EQ. This is by a guy called Thomas Mundt. I believe he's German. Think of it as the Waves L1 in like a basic limiter. You can link the input and output. I like that. There's an intersample peak detection button, and apart from that, it does what it says on the box. It's a limiter. I also have the Comper, also by Analog Obsession, and the last one is this one, the MJUC Junior, and that's because I love the Big Brother. I actually bought the Big Brother because of this guy. The Big Brother looks like this and has like Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, so different versions. This looks like kind of a stay level compressor. I don't know what this one is. Perhaps like an 1176. This is kind of 670 Fairchild-ish. But this actually, it does kind of what I do with the Big Brother. It's just ever so slightly tapping the transient. Let's listen to what's going on. It's like an 80s kind of song. It sounds like this going into the first chorus. Let's go right ahead and look at the plugins on the Masterbus. For me, I need the Masterbus set up by the get-go because I needed to color everything I do and every decision I make. So basically, if you watch here, you can see that the very first plugin on my Masterbus, it's called Stereo Art and Logic, it looks like it's doing a lot. 4 dBs maybe, but I've only blended in 40%. So basically it's a 40% blend of a 4 dB compressed signal. And downstairs I have a little bit more compression with a faster attack and a faster release, doing FET style. And also just blending it in. The next thing to me is really important. And I know some of you might be wondering, well, the needle is barely moving. What is he talking about? Listen to the difference. I can perhaps bypass the limiters. Listen to the difference in the snare when I bypass this plugin. I know it's subtle. I'm gonna try to overdo it. It has such a wonderful grab. And there's some sort of coloring going on. And speaking of coloring, the next thing on my Masterbus is this. It's a Pultec EQ doing this amount of 5K. And the thing I love about this emulation is on certain big developers doing Pultec plugins, I can't get the 3, 4, 5K to sound any good. And I know that most guys just, they dime it looking for like 16 or 12 or 10K. But I like the, on a real Pultec, I like the 8 or the 5K. Without. And then on the low end, I like doing the Pultec trick where you're boosting and cutting at the same frequency. I love it. And then we get to the limiters. So normally I do this, inspired actually by a YouTuber called Noise. I link the input and output. I try to just get it to tickle on the Masterbus. So the first thing is this. Whenever you have like a 4 on the floor kick and snare, I'm looking more for what the limiter, what it's doing when the snare hits. And you can see it's about 1 dB when the kick hits, but when the kick and snare hits, it's about 2.2. And I love it. Then after that, I follow it up with more of like, a normal limiter doing minus 1 dB on the output. And then I bring down the gain or the threshold until I see and hear what I like. And then another freebie, the Youlean loudness meter, and I'm looking for the integrated lifts if I play. Short term minus 10 LUFS, it's okay. It's not that loud, but if you listen to the mix, there's actually no mid-range going on in the mix. That's also why I was able to, to turn up the mid-range on the Pultec at 5K. So this is basically all of the plugins except for one plugin, and that's this one. Now I have it situated on my drum bus, and if I bypass all of the, perhaps except the last limiter on the Masterbus, this is what I have it doing. I'm just going to bypass all the plugins on the drum bus. Again, I know it can be quite subtle, but listen to how the drums start to breathe between the snare and the kick, or rather the kick and the snare. When I engage this compressor, it has sort of that punch that I would expect from an SSL compressor. I feel the snare and the kick kind of, coming against me, but then getting held back by the compressor if I overdo it. You know what? I'm gonna keep that and just blend it in. Also, there's like a transformer and turbo. I don't know what it is, but it does something. Without, with, I like it. Next up on the drum bus, a Pultec, basically doing the same thing, boosting 20 Hertz. Come on, who doesn't love that? And then, as the final thing on my drum bus, I have this limiter by Thomas Mund. And it's the exact same thing I'm looking for. When the kick and the snare hits, I want it to just limit, like, a couple of dBs. And when you put all that together, this is what you get. Now, I know there are a lot more companies out there doing great stuff. One of the things that I could have mentioned is that I also actually use this quite a lot. Boom. This one. Because it's also in the color realm of actually doing some weird stuff. Listen to what it does on the drum bus when I put it in. If I remove all of the other plugins. Who doesn't love that? Come on. Be honest. So basically, guys, to sum up, I love Analog Obsession. It has some sort of distortion or saturation going on in almost all of their plugins, and it just feels right to me. The Pultec emulation, I have to say, is probably my favorite, because I'm not always, when I'm searching for something that delivers color, it's always on my drum bus and always on my master bus. I just love the way it boosts in the low end, and the high end, it never gets harsh for me, actually. That's it, guys. All of the plugins that I've used in this video are in the description. Go visit Analog Obsession, go visit Thomas Mund, and go visit Klanghelm that does the MJUC Junior, and take care. Klausifar heraus.